What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Enjoy the Ride podcast. I'm beyond excited about today's episode as I have, I would say, a good friend, Maddie, on the show. And Maddie and I go a ways back. She was a client on Team Make Waves as she was prepping for a bikini competition. And throughout working together, I really more so got to learn about herself as an entrepreneur, as she has a gym herself, and she, of course, is involved in personal training. And Maddie, I'm just so pumped to have you here, just because, again, you got a great journey. Like I said, I don't know much about your business side of things with you owning your gym and, of course, the personal training side of things. So I really would love to talk about that. But again, even your journey with like pursuing the dream of stepping up on stage and competing in a bikini competition is just
Yeah.
incredible. So again, it's just so amazing to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. So
Of
really,
course.
really pleased to be on your podcast. I'm really excited about this.
I'll say this too, because it's funny because I joked around with you too. Like you made history in my life when it came to coaching because you were my first client
Yeah,
from overseas. And this is
yeah.
cool because now you're my first person that I'm talking to on the podcast from overseas. So this
I
is
know, I
great.
was quite
This is
cool. I
great.
was like going, oh my God, I'm your first UK client. And it was all a bit of a random one really when I found you because it was just through some bodybuilding forum because I'd been sort of toying with the idea of getting back into actually competing because I'd sort of attempted to do it by myself a few years back and it never actually materialized. And then we had lockdown. And then I was sort of like, anybody can recommend me a coach, and you came up and you kind of aligned with what I talk about in my business. So my business is more about well-being and
Yep.
like the overall thing. So it's not all about just an aesthetic. It's about, which I know is contradictory to what I ended up doing, but to me, it's about more than just an aesthetic. It's about your whole lifestyle, like engaging in a social aspects as well as, like how you physically look, but how you physically feel inside, how you mentally feel, and like nourishing yourself in the best way possible. Just I don't know. I felt like you were one of the few coaches out there that was about the whole body rather than
Yep.
this is what you need to achieve. It's all about the aesthetic and there's nothing else in it. And that's what kind of appealed to me in the first place.
No, that's awesome. And again, it's funny too, because I remember when you filled out the coaching application, and I'm just so used, like, for those that I work with in the States, like, their telephone number begins with like the one, and it's like 609. And I remember I saw your number, and I'm like, wait, this isn't from United States. I'm like, how am I going to contact this person? So I remember we went back and forth on Facebook a little bit originally.
Yeah.
And then I had to download WhatsApp to, of course, have that communication with you throughout working together. And we went on a few calls throughout the time together too, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
So it was a
Yeah.
great experience. But getting into the business side of things, because again, like this is really what I wanted to talk to you about, Maddie, because like I said, this is a new kind of conversation for me too when it comes to, of course, like your background.
Yeah.
So how'd you get this started? Like what was the full story for you in regards to, of course, pursuing a career in this and of course opening up the gym that you have in the UK and of course kind of the more wellness side of things? Like how'd you get into
Yeah.
this all?
Yeah. So like I've been probably in the industry since I was 18. I say in the industry. I was not very good at sport in general at school. Was not a team player in terms of I was not very good at catching the ball and or hitting a ball or anything like that. So I was really rubbish at that. But when it came to like independent sports like I don't know, judo or taekwondo or whatever, I quite enjoyed that. And then I found the gym and I fell in love with the gym and from about the age of 18. And my fitness journey really started from there. So I started working in like, your typical leisure centers, private clubs and stuff like that, and worked my way up as a fitness instructor. And then I moved to London and I sort of fell into recruitment for a bit. And then I had children. Well, I had my first kid. And I think there was a real thing for me when I was growing up, really was lacking confidence when I was growing up in my 20s. I think a lot of women would probably relate to my story in not feeling like confident in yourself or believing in yourself or thinking you can achieve anything beyond what somebody's pretty much told you at school. And also the other side of it being like your physical self, because we were just bombarded when we were kids, with like this image of what a woman should look like and and when I was growing up, it was this heroin chic, like super skinny, like nothing on you. And I did have a brief moment where I kind of dipped into that when I was in my sort of I don't know 17, 18-year old self, not managing my food properly, training at least 2 hours a day, just crazy stuff. And I was got very, very small. But that, fitted in the sort of aesthetic of what women were meant to be,
Yeah.
small and tiny and nothing on them sort of thing. Um, yeah, and then I had my first kid and I was just like, oh my God, why do I care so much about like what people might think of me or if I'm any good or if I'm good enough? Because I think I had that whole you're not good enough, you're not going to be able to manage this, that, and the other, like and I don't know, I just think having a kid just made me think, God, who cares? Nobody
Yeah.
cares about I've had a kid. Nobody cares about me particularly. Everybody cares about themselves, really, in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of
At the
thing.
end of
And
the
that's the
day.
thing. You've got to remember, you've got to be out there for yourself before anybody else. Um, and then sort of rolling forward, I did all the things I had to do. Then had my second kid, and I did my personal training qualification, which I should have done years ago. And so then started, and so I started up my business, sort of again in a bit of a roundabout way, because I got offered a job around a very easy kind of 9 to 5 job that I was doing at the time. And it was just to train one client, but because this one client was paying me a lot of money, and the boss who'd given me this job said, "Look, you've got to make a decision now. Do you want to keep working where you are, which was just, as I say, nothing special, this job, or do you make the leap?" And you're sort of like, "Fuck, I've just got to just go for it. I'm just going to go for it." And so I did. And I kind of never looked back since, basically, in that side of things, in terms of setting my personal training business. And then I've just met some really inspirational clients along the way. And I had one client who just turned around to me and was like, "Why don't you have your own studio?" And I was like, good point. I've been like working in various gyms and doing whatever all PTs do.
Yeah.
And so I just was like, so I found this studio and it was in the middle of the countryside. Literally, everyone was like, "Oh, it's too far away. No one's going to come." It's like just, you need to be more central, but I couldn't find anything. So anyway, I went for it. And again, not looked back since because I made it work. Like, and because I'm a personal trainer, but I'm also a yoga instructor. And so I've kind of combined the two elements. And then as I've grown the business, I've really worked on mindset. So to me, mindset is probably the biggest key to everything else.
Mhm.
Like if your headspace isn't in the right space, or you're trying to do, like if you're trying to train for something, or you're trying to be something different, or you want to change your body type and you're not doing it for you and you're doing it for everybody else, then the likelihood is you're going to get really disappointed because you're never going to be happy with it.
Yeah.
And it's understanding how to be happy in the process of it, because it's always a process, let's be honest. There's never an end really to it, because you're always training. And so you probably have had it with your clients, is like realizing that it never ends. You just
Yeah.
keep doing it. It keeps getting a bit harder. It never gets easier, but that's the whole point, is to just keep going. But can you recognize all the good things that are coming out of it and how it's impacting the rest of your life as well? So like, I've had clients come to me. I have a particular client of mine, and she came to me because her husband sent her to me. So she didn't even really want to be there. She was just like,
That's terrible.
"I don't really do the gym. I don't do that over there," because like my studio is kind of split. So you got like the sort of yoga element and then like the weightlifting element. And I was like, "Okay." So we did. I said, "But we can just start with some like Pilates style moves." And now she is the girl who comes in, and she used to come in like this and was really unconfident, always saying sorry. I mean, if you can think of all the things that I can think, a lot of my female clients would say to me,
Yep.
that's what I get, as a lot of insecurity, hating on their body. I can't, I'm not good enough. This isn't, and then I've changed, and I say I've changed, she's changed her mindset, and it's become, I can do this. I'm going to have a go at this. Now, this girl who doesn't lift weights, this girl who doesn't do any kind of fitness whatsoever, she sees me, and then she also goes and does a martial arts class. She does a dance class, and she does some other thing. I can't remember the other thing, but she's doing like, she's training 4 times a week now. I'm like, okay,
Look
that's
at you
great. And
go.
she comes in and she's like, "Right, what weight are we lifting today?" And we're deadlifting and we're squatting and we're like, okay, and
That's
I said,
awesome.
so, and that's what I love seeing. I love seeing this change from somebody who's just kind of lost their way, basically lost themselves in order to keep everybody else happy, and somehow just doesn't know who they are anymore.
Yeah.
And then going, actually, no, I do deserve to look after myself, and I do deserve to invest in myself. And, and like if people ever question what they're paying me, or, probably yourself, uh, they're most of my clients would turn around and say, yeah, but it's an investment in me.
Yeah.
It's not an invest, it's not that the money isn't the concern to me. The concern to me is, am I putting time into myself? And the only time I'm going to give myself is knowing I've booked it out with you and
Yeah.
and I'm with you for that hour. No, that hour doesn't get given up to anybody else, you know?
Yeah,
So
and that's honestly priceless. Like being able to
yeah.
invest, your hard-earned money in something that's only gonna make you better
Yeah.
and just again prolong your life even, it's priceless.
Yeah, totally.
It
And
truly
like, and
is.
I think that's what I always try to come back to when we all do it, including myself, as you know, where you go, oh God, this is wrong, that's not good enough, or I should have, or you've slipped off the wagon with your nutrition or whatever it is. But can I look back and go, actually, this is where I was, this is where I am now. Look how strong I've got in this area. Or yeah, okay, your nutrition went out the window this week, but what about your weights? How's your weightlifting going?
Yeah.
Like you had a PB this week, like, or have you, noticed that actually you're fitting into your clothes far better than you were before,
Yeah.
or just in general, is your mindset of like, I get up in the morning and it's a new day and let's go for it, not, oh, I
Yeah.
just want to see that change as well. I think
Yeah,
that's
no,
so important.
mindset is huge. And it's funny you say that too, because like I look back at all those that I've worked with in the past and those that have had like the best experience, like working with me and have had the best results, they're the ones that their mindset's in that spot, that they're building a great lifestyle around this. And they're seeing like that this is going to be a long journey and
Yeah.
they can't focus on the short term, right?
Yeah.
It's huge. It really is huge. So it's great that like that is the backbone of what you're doing with those individuals that you're working with too. And again, even yourself, because like I said, Maddie, working with you firsthand, you know, everybody has ups and downs when it comes to a journey, let's be honest. But again, your mindset was always there. Like we would have the days and the weeks that, maybe it wasn't the best, but at the end of the day, you're like, hey, I gotta pick myself back up. And like I'm truly grateful, for my life, my body, my health to have another day. And like you always did that. You're able to get right back to it and we're able to keep progressing. So it's just awesome to hear that you really practice what you preach too, which is amazing.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like I will be, when you follow me or if you see me on my Instagram or whatever I'm doing or I'm doing my socials, I'm always really honest. I'll be
Yeah.
honest and go like, you know what, I had a crap day with food, wasn't the best, but
But
I'm
that's
gonna get
great
back
though.
on it the next day, right? Or
Yep.
like like when you are finding yourself in that place where you're just questioning yourself or don't feel like you're moving forward, I'll say like, you're gonna have those days, but like just look now, that's the time when that happens. It's like, go, just a minute though, look where I am now to where I was,
Yeah.
like, so I just yeah, I just think it's really important. And I think also because I want to kind of cut through all of that stuff which is in the fitness industry, unfortunately, which we all see, which is just always about, look how great I look,
Yeah.
like that, to be happy you have to have this body. And actually no, that's great and it's a great look, but there's a lot of those people who are looking like that which aren't probably that happy. They just look really good for an Instagram feed, and that's
Yeah.
not what I'm about. I'm about
Yeah.
so much more than that. I just think life is about living
Yeah.
and not feeling restricted all of the time,
Yeah, and
so
I love that you say it, Maddie, because it's funny too. Like, I look back on my journey up until this point, and I feel like in a similar stance, more so how you got your journey up and running. Same situation, like just being in the bodybuilding space, because that's really how I got going with like health and fitness, and kind of like falling in love with like, this passion of mine and being able to help people. But it kind of came from I had not the best experience with competing, just because, as you know firsthand, because you went through this yourself too.
yeah.
Um, Following a very strict diet for a bodybuilding competition, it's not the most enjoyable thing. And it's not sustainable long term. After a few years, I was like, hey, like, I really am not able to live my full life. And I feel like I'm missing out on certain areas of my life because, again, I'm so strict with what I'm kind of pursuing. And that's how make waves. And that's how, me wanting to show you guys how to be able to enjoy life to the fullest while still making great progress kind of came into play. So it's kind of cool to see that, again, even with your story of like back in the day, like, the cover girl photo was, a super skinny girl that probably wasn't the healthiest.
Mm.
Something that you tried for a little bit, but after that, you're like, wow, like this just isn't it. And that's kind of more so how what led you to kind of starting your own thing. Let me ask you this too. So, were you more scared to open the studio, or were you more scared to take the leap and kind of go off on your own before you got the studio?
I think the leap actually, rather than the studio. The studio was like, because I think by the time I opened my studio, I got my head, I was in a real mindset of like, do you know what? Life is for living, and I've only got this one life to live. And I don't even know, like, we don't know whether we've got the next day to come.
Yeah,
And like, who else is there to judge what I do? Like, really, do I care? And also, like, if I, and this is the one thing that I always go by, which is just try it. If it fails, it fails. What is the worst that has happened?
Yeah, I love that.
Like, okay, it's failed. We'll just try something else, right?
Yeah,
Like, I'm not, no, and then I hope nobody dies, like nobody's died, like it just failed, and I just think you can start over. And
yeah.
that's kind of my view of things.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
awesome, Maddie. Because I will like that's a scary concept because a lot of
Yeah.
people don't like to fail, but you learn so much through failure. Not and again, looking at where you're at right now and the impact that you've had, it's truly tremendous. And I'm sure that you've had some like low points throughout this journey of being a business owner, and I'm sure yeah, feel free to
Oh,
elaborate on that.
honestly, I've had empty yoga classes. I've had weeks where I've thought, God, I just really need some more clients because this is not going well, you
Yeah.
know. But you always know that, okay, well, I just got to put in more work and I'm going to do something different. And also you need to fail to see the things that do work and don't work, right? It's the
Hmm.
same with your training, it's the same with your food, it's like everything in life, basically. Like
Yeah.
some things work, some things don't. And I've just got to be just, and I just really believe, like believe in God or believe in the universe, whatever you want to believe in, but like believe that you're being guided to go the right way, and the things that don't work weren't meant to happen in the
Yeah.
first place. So like I'm just like, just go with it and just see what comes.
Yeah, no, I love that because again, I truly feel called, to do what I'm doing too, and I'm sure you probably feel the same way when it comes to, of course, what you're doing,
Yeah.
and for those that you're, impacting, which is awesome. But it's funny you say the same thing, because trust me, I feel the same way when it comes to, of course, like we have 1 month where we didn't sign a lot of clients, and I'm like, this is the end, we're going out of business. I'm like, what is
Yeah.
happening?
No, I'm
So,
totally like that. And I go, oh, it's going to be a quiet month. And then I
yep,
go, you know what? But maybe it's meant to be quiet for a reason, because then I can focus on this, this,
yeah,
this, this. And that's what I take from it now. I'm like, don't stress about it. It's going to come. And like in that time, we can build this, 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 and this. And
yeah,
that's fine. I'm trying not to like, when you were younger, like I'm sure the same for you. Like when you're younger, you want everything to happen there and now.
oh,
Like, why
I
won't it
still do.
happen? And really impatient and like super spontaneous. And I'm just going to do that. And you're like, why did you not think this through?
Yep.
So
No, it's
yeah,
so funny. And I'm catching myself because again, I'm still that way. And like my wife
yeah,
Taylor is a true blessing because she's like, all right, you got to slow down. You got a lot on your mind. Like you want to do all these things, but like let's just process this real quick and not
yeah.
because I'll start something and not finish it just because I thought it was a good
Yeah, that sounds
idea.
like me. That sounds
Yeah.
like me.
Because
I
again, I'll
know,
have a
like,
slow month
I'm
and
going
I'm
to
like,
do
all right, I'm
this.
gonna do this real quick, and then I just don't finish it. And I don't reap any benefit to that. I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah, no, totally. And then and I expect you have friends and family go, did you think about doing this? And you're thinking, yeah, I have thought about it, but like in the
Yep.
time that I've got to do everything else, I really haven't got time to do that. But you really should. I know. I just give me some more hours in the day and I'll do
Yes.
it.
No, it's the truth. That is so funny. I'm glad we're the same person in that
Yeah.
sense. So let me ask you this too. Like when you first opened the studio, did you have like the picture that, part of it was going to be strength training, part of it was going to be yoga, or like did the yoga bit come on later down the road? Like how'd you kind of set that
Actually, it
up?
was almost slightly in reverse, because I took it on the basis of doing yoga more, and
Okay.
then I would have personal training just sort of kind of working alongside it. Although, because I just was really kind of in love with my yoga and stuff, but I did kind of, my general imagining of the studio was that the two would come together, because generally speaking, if you work in the personal training space, I mean it's changed quite a bit in the last couple of years, but when you're working in personal training space, it was all about weight training.
Hmm.
There was no real sort of mobility. There's a bit of a stretch at the beginning, a bit of a stretch at the end,
Oh,
but there was
100%.
nothing really right worked. Nobody really focused on that. But now obviously it's much more like, yeah, you need to work on flexibility because that's going to enhance your training, right?
Yeah.
And quite equally in the yoga space, like don't train, don't be lifting weights because it's going to restrict your mobility and your flexibility.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is insane. Like to me, they work together. And also because I can really manage the session with the client. So if that client comes in, they are knackered, or they're really stressed out, or I'm like, oh yeah, let's throw a little weight training in. I don't think it's actually going to be beneficial to that person. And I'll be
Yeah.
like, you know what? I think we really need to sort out your cortisol levels and like get you a little bit calmer. Let's reduce your stress. Let's find some ways to manage your anxiety, whatever's going on for them. And I might spend the whole hour, or might spend half an hour just working on their stress levels and just helping to reduce that if we then go on to do some weights. We might not do, but it just, to me, like I said, I'm probably quite intuitive with my clients. So I as much as they're paying to do a personal training session, that part of the reason they join me is because they know they have the option to go, do you know what, Mads, I've just had it. I'm done. I'm really like, I've got nothing in me. And I'm like, okay, let's do some yoga because
Yeah.
you're still moving through the body. You're still opening up the body. You're probably going to get your cortisol levels down a little bit. You're probably going to just have a chance to actually breathe.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the biggest thing for most people, just don't know how to breathe. It's just like take a moment to take a deep breath in, you know.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's huge.
and
That's
that's
huge.
that then that's kind of, yeah, that's kind of how it's all sort of grown, I suppose, in the
No, that's
studio.
awesome. I love,
So
it's funny too,
yeah.
because the older that I get, the more I realize now that I have to work on the mobility side of things, because I'm not young anymore, that I can just run into a workout, not stretch and
No,
feel
do you know what I
okay.
was saying? That I was saying when I was in my 20s, I remember you're like, I don't think I ever stretched. I think a
It's the
brief
truth.
bit of stretching at the end, maybe. Never did anything at the beginning. And then yeah, you could just get away with it. You could like I said, I could do a 2 hour, I was doing 2 hour gym workouts 6 days a week, never stretched.
Yeah.
You
No,
know, and
it's
now
so
it's
funny.
like, yeah, gonna
Can't
need a
do that
stretch
anymore.
before I even get started, let alone at the end.
You can't do that anymore. I wake up, my shoulder hurts, my back hurts. I'm like,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
isn't good. Like I have to start
yeah,
prioritizing this.
totally.
And I have tried yoga, Maddie. I just that's the thing about yoga too. And again, I'm sure you have such a great background with this that you probably will be able to help me. But I'm
Yeah,
just not flexible for some of these positions.
yeah,
Like, and it's funny too, like when I was on my honeymoon, we did goat yoga, and this was the first
yeah.
time I actually did a yoga class. Now,
Oh, the
mind
goat
you,
yoga. I remember seeing the photos. Yeah,
there
yeah,
was yes,
yeah,
so there was goats all over the place, and like we were feeding them Cheerios. I wouldn't really call this a yoga class because like I was more like just like mesmerized by these like tiny goats like running around all over the
yeah,
place. But there was a yoga instructor, and she was taking us through like these positions and so forth. And I, oh my goodness, I could not get into half of these. Like it was more
yeah,
painful for me, and I was like more out of breath. Like I'm like trying to like get into these positions. But oh
yeah,
my
yeah,
gosh, like it is for those that practice it, it's incredible to see what you guys are able to do with these positions and this kind of like
yeah,
the flow of everything. It's
yeah.
insane.
So yeah, so I will preface this with when I was 20, I did one yoga class. It was an hour and a half long. I thought it was the biggest hour and a half that I'd wasted of my life at the time. I thought it's so slow, so boring. So I am very like you, like I'm on all the time, right? And so for me, vinyasa yoga is far better for me because it's a lot more movement and
Hmm.
more flow, and it's not so strict in its movement. And one of the things that I do at the studio is men's flexibility and like a functional flexibility class.
Okay.
It is yoga, but we call it flexibility because then the men come. So, but what I find is I try to kind of just work with how your body moves rather than going, oh, you have to get into this position because it's really hard. And most guys normally have quite tight hamstrings. So
Yes.
down dog is like, what? I'm not even going to stretch my legs out, right? You're not going to stretch your legs out. You're going to probably have kind of bent knees, and that's cool. It's not to me like yoga is about just working with what you can manage within your body, and rather than forcing it into these poses that just don't feel comfortable, and you're just thinking, "Oh my God, I'm in agony." Like,
Yes. That was me.
it's over and done with now. And then yeah, so for me, I would say it's about just find something that's just modify it basically. So bend the knees, bend your arms, like be kind with your body and like move down into the movement in a way that feels right for you. And if it feels more comfortable to kind of move like this or like soft into the knees, do that. Like
Yeah.
I think some depending on the style of the yoga, it's more strict. So like something like Ashtanga is very strict. Iyengar is quite strict in terms of making sure every posture is specific.
Hmm.
Whereas I feel like I say, like the way I do things, it's maybe a little bit more working with the body rather than trying to be like super strict about every single pose. So maybe I'm not too much of a purist when it comes to yoga because I just think if you can find some movement with it and understand how to move with your breath,
Yeah.
that makes a big difference. Because I think that's the other thing is you guys are kind of holding your breath because you're like, I just try to get into the stretch.
Oh,
And I'm
it
like,
was so
and
bad.
breathe, breathe. And they're like, oh yeah, okay. And
Yeah.
and I've got the guys that come to my men's flexibility, my youngest is probably 40, my oldest is probably in his 60s. and they've been coming for a couple of years now, and they do so well, and
Yeah.
they're doing all sorts of random things. But you know what I'm saying? Like what I'm trying to say is like it's not an aged thing. Like it does get better and it gets easier, and they started from like the real basics of like a child's pose, maybe being on all fours and just kind of just really gently moving forwards and backwards through the hips, and
Yep.
it's kind of releasing all those tight hip flexors and
Oh,
tight
that's my
hamstrings,
problem.
right?
That
Yeah,
is my problem.
I sometimes do it as part of my warm up, and I got this really lovely joint couple, and that they come, and she does yoga, he doesn't obviously, and I do just a standard kind of front lunge kind of thing that you
Yep.
do, like called lizard lunge, and he's like, oh. And it is really funny because we do start to take the mick out of him because you say you sound a little bit pregnant. You sound like you're going into labour. He's like,
Yep.
oh, like, it will get better. You just got to keep practicing.
I love it. It's funny too because like I remember vividly that day, like we were doing like this like front lunge thing that we like held and like twisted to the side,
Oh
and
yeah,
like
yeah,
Maddie,
yeah,
I was dying, and like I got back in the car that day. I'm like, I literally can like lunge with like heavy weight on my back, and I can't do a body weight lunge with a twist. I'm like, what
yeah.
the heck is happening?
Yeah, yeah, no, no, and that's the thing because in my functional flexibility, it's more body weight training and
Hmm.
body weight stretches, and I do like animal flow, that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And yeah, people who do a lot of weight training are really strong. They're like, I just don't know how you're even getting into that posture. Like, I
No, it's
can't
so
even get
funny.
in it. And I'm
It is
like,
so funny.
honestly, it's just practice. And I just think take yoga. There is more to yoga than obviously the movement, but like the asana, which is the movement, I just think take it with a little bit more lightness about it. Just don't take it too seriously. And if you don't take it too seriously, you can probably relax into it more than if
Yeah,
you're like, oh, I've got to be like perfect or I've got to be in this posture. I just think, if your bum's up in the air a little bit more than it should be, fine.
it's
Like
totally fine.
just work with it,
Yeah,
So yeah.
no, 100%. Because I honestly started it because one, I wanted to work on mobility, but like two, being like an entrepreneur, like I always like look at other like successful entrepreneurs, and like a lot of these guys talk about like a morning routine. They like, I
Yeah.
wake up, and again, everybody's got different opinions about morning routines, but it's just like I went through a phase and I was like, all right, this guy is crushing it with his business. Let me see what he's doing in the morning, because clearly what he's doing in the morning is working for him, and it's leading to him to, having a very successful business. And a lot of the guys like wake up, they'll do like a cold plunge, they'll do, like morning meditation or prayer
Yeah.
and yoga. So, and breath work. So
Yeah.
I was like, and again, I saw a lot of people were doing yoga, breath work, and meditation. So I'm like, maybe
Yeah.
there's something to this that I'm not seeing. And again, like, I'm sure you can relate to this too, but like, my mind's constantly on. It's on all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always thinking about the
Yeah.
business. What are we doing here? What's not working? Like, yada, yada, yada. And it sometimes drives me nuts. And I wanted to turn to yoga for like, again, the calming sense, kind of the mentality side of things, right? So I would love for you to kind of talk about like that a little bit. Like, do you see a benefit? Because again, I'm sure you can really
Yeah.
calm your mind probably
So,
better
so
than
I'm
most.
gonna I'm gonna touch on this in two ways, right? So when my business was not so busy, I had the time to be able to get up in the morning, do a nice little yoga flow, sit there and do a little bit of meditation. And I found the meditation really hard. I'm the same as you. Brain is always on, and when I teach it in the studio, I talk them through the meditation because they've
Hmm.
got to listen to me rather than what's going on in their brain. Because I
Hmm.
know we're all like it. Our society is like, well, there's just too much going on all the time. It's that instant gratification, basically. So it's very hard to switch off. Um, and yeah, and then I would maybe I do some breath work, and then I'd have the luxury of maybe going to the gym later on in the afternoon. Now, for me, because my business is so busy, well, I still want to fit in my workout every 4 days or 5 days a week. Um, and then I obviously do teach yoga, but I also want to have my own yoga practice because
Hmm.
otherwise it kind of takes the joy out of teaching. Like when you do teaching, so you need to find that balance.
Yeah.
So for me now, what I tend to do is I'll get up and I always do some sort of form of gratitude or prayer or like meditation, whatever it is, and then I go and do my training. Or on the day that I don't do my training, that's when I do my yoga. So because I just physically don't have the time to do both.
Yeah.
But as long as I can do my gratitude in the morning, so I do some like gratitude affirmations and then maybe be able to sit down for 10 minutes. That's the maximum I ever do. I don't do a lot more than that. I don't physically have the time to do that unless I get up at 5 and I don't want to do that because I want
That's
my
that.
sleep.
That's not realistic.
But I would say, yeah, I would say the way I started yoga actually was I used to literally roll out of bed because I was in so much pain from training. So I'd roll out of bed and all I did was 10 minutes of yoga every morning. So I had my mat right next to my bed. I had no excuse. So, in your undies and just do
Yeah.
your 10 minutes of yoga for yourself. And that was how I started. But I do definitely notice a big difference between when I've sort of got up in the morning, I do my meditation or a little bit of stretching, whichever it is, to a morning where I get up and then I'm just off
Yeah.
because my brain can't, I feel like I'm in overwhelm before I've even started my day. Whereas when I get up in the morning and I've just taken 10 minutes to myself, I'd like the only reason I'm on my phone is to go on YouTube to put on a meditation or
Yeah.
to put on a bit of yoga so that I haven't got to think. But I don't go on my phone to go through my social media, for example. That's not what I do in the morning. That I refuse to do that. That's like later on in the day.
Yeah.
Um, and that just stops me from being overwhelmed before I start my day. And if I do have moments where I'm feeling really overwhelmed, I will just go and lock myself in my bedroom and just sit and do some meditation for like 10 minutes and just to breathe, just do some breath work
Yep.
because it just helps me to okay, and breathe,
Yeah.
this is not important. This whole feeling of overwhelm, there's got to be just one thing that I can just focus on and I can deal with it one bit at a time because there's no way I can't attempt to do it all.
Yeah.
It's too much.
I think that's great. And honestly, it's a superpower, Maddie. Like it's
Yeah.
I see the value in it, and like it's just something that I gotta practice. Again, I just gotta be more consistent with it. So
Yeah, but I don't also just don't beat yourself up if you're not doing it every day of the week.
yeah.
Because I think people, like you say, you see all these morning ritual things and everything, and I think, who the fuck are you? And like in the nicest way, unless you're making a lot of money and you have the ability to have other people working for you and everything else, I think when you're on your own solo and you're trying to do everything, then I think you have got to be realistic as well and go, look,
Yeah.
I know I can't do an hour's practice every morning of yoga. That would be lovely. But I can do 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes,
Yeah.
maybe. Um, and maybe my weekends are going to be my yoga weekends. That's when I do my yoga because I've done my training through the week. Now this is a time to recharge, reset, and kind of take a moment to breathe,
Yeah.
really. But if I don't do my yoga in the morning, the very least I do is just to be really I do some gratitude, as I say, and then I'll just maybe take a moment to sit and just have like 10 minutes and just enjoy the peace and quiet in the
Yeah.
morning when nobody's up and you
Yeah.
can hear the
No,
birds and
it's a lovely thing.
things like
It's a
that.
lovely
So,
thing. I have
yeah.
like two more questions. I don't want to keep you for too much
Yeah,
longer.
no,
I
that's okay. That's okay.
one big question because honestly, I didn't even think about this until we started talking about it because you just brought like a little snippet up of something I want to ask you, and then I got one more question if we have time. So, and again, I'll kind of share my story with this too. Do you feel like your view of training and yoga has not been as enjoyable since you started helping people with that too? And like why I asked this is I was addicted to the gym
Yeah.
before, I got Make Waves up and running and my day has, kind of turned into like building out people's strength training programs, helping people with their diets, doing check-ins. And I will be honest, like there was like a year and a half that I hated going to the gym just because like my day was engulfed with all things, workouts
Yeah,
when it
gym
comes to like,
related. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Did
Yeah.
you do you feel like have you felt that way when it came to training or yoga? Like, all right, I'm doing this every day for other people and helping people with it, that I've
Yeah.
kind of noticed that I'm losing enjoyment when it comes to like your own self?
Yeah, definitely. So certainly when I first started out my PT business, so not so much the fitness, well, not when I was a fitness instructor, but when I become PT, it did become a bit because I was going to gyms and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
I do think I got to a bit of a point where I was like, almost like a bit like when you work in a gym, you don't want to stay on for another hour having just
Yeah.
done your shift, that kind of thing. Yeah, so it's like that really, isn't it? And you just think, oh, and now I've got to work out, and that's like another hour at work,
Yeah.
basically. So yeah, I totally get that. I haven't had it so much nowadays with like my weight training, although I definitely have weeks where I just think I've got nothing. And sometimes and now I try to be more lenient with myself now and go, do you know what? If you've got nothing, you've got nothing. You can stop.
Yeah.
You've done what you can manage. Just take a break. Your body obviously needs it. So I try to listen a bit more to my body. But yeah, yoga, I have real waves with that because for me, like there's two types of yoga teachers from what I can tell. So there's the ones who plan out their sessions with the classes and the clients and stuff. And then there's me who does it all off my head because that's how I work. I'm just
Yeah.
not very good at the whole this is the set routine we're going to do, and we're not going to deviate from that. I just can't work like that.
Hmm.
But equally, if I haven't done enough of my own practice, I find I start to get really like exhausted and fatigued with having to teach it. I sort of
Yeah.
think, oh, come on, let's think of something else we can do now. And what we're going to do now. And I get and I have had real moments of going, I just don't want to teach yoga anymore. I just don't want to do this anymore. I'm just really done with it, you know.
Yeah.
And then I'll pick up my practice, and then I can start to bring it back into it. But yeah, definitely have felt it more with the yoga side of things, because I think because it's in many ways more physically demanding because you're teaching it. So you are working out with the
Yeah.
clients
No, 100%.
all the time. So at least when you're a PT, you're effectively standing there most of the time. Okay, you might do some bits with them, but you're not doing the whole workout with them,
Yep.
right? So yeah, I've definitely had moments. I mean, I've literally have spoken to friends before and gone, I think I'm just done. I just don't know
Yeah.
if I want to do it anymore, you know? And that has meant that I have now restricted how much I do, because I've realized in order to give the best version of me in that, I need to do less rather than trying to do like 6 or 8 classes. I do like 4
Yeah.
because I just was burnt out trying to teach it, and I just
Yeah.
thought I'm just not
No,
enjoying this.
that's great that you're self-aware of that because it was like kind of sad too when I realized that. I was like, man, like what happened? Like I hate going to the gym. Like when I get here, I just want to leave. I'm like, this is such a
Yeah,
sad way of like living because this was such a huge thing in my life.
yeah, yeah.
That's changed now, which is a blessing. But yeah, it's I never actually was able to ask someone else that question before because like, no one I really
No,
don't talk to
I
a lot
don't
of
think
people.
people relate to it. And also, I think nobody ever wants to pretend that, oh no, I love the gym all the time.
Yeah.
I love doing yoga all the time. You know, it's my life, it's my blood. You know, like, well, yeah, we all love things, but you can like fall out of love with things for a bit, you know,
Yeah.
and then something will happen, and then you like, oh, okay, you know, and that's kind of what I've done with my training. I changed it a bit. So I do a little bit of calisthenics training now, and then I do some weight training just to be doing something different. Everything aches all the time as well. So it was obviously working, but like, but at least I kind of go, right, I get the weight training done in 2 days, and then I do my calisthenics training for the other 2 days. And
Yep.
I kind of look forward to the calisthenics training. And
Yeah.
because it's like, it's just different, but I'm still training my body. It's just a different way to do it. And for me at the moment, that's just what I needed, really. It was just something a little bit different to what I've been doing for
Yeah.
such a long time, like you say. So,
I love that. I appreciate you touching upon that. Last question. Again, this won't take too long, but I was actually asked this question last week and I loved it because I never thought about this. And, for us being in like the coaching position, like we're always, always teaching other people things, right? And the question that I was asked last week was like, all right, you've helped all these people over the years. Like, what's the one lesson that they taught you? And like, honestly, Maddie, like this stumbled me because I was like, man, like, this is a really good question. Like, I'll just share my answer real quick to kind of give you some
yeah.
help. Cause again, like I like was like silent for like a good like minute trying to figure about this and I try to get deep with it. And this is more so like, and you did talk about this a little bit too, but like enjoy the ride is really what I would say. Like if I look back, even like on your journey, right? For you, of course, getting up on stage. But it's just one of those things that I look back at all the people that I've been able to help over the years. And, there's always all these things I can say like, oh, like practice patience, be consistent. But I would say like the biggest lesson that I personally learned was just enjoy the ride because so many people get caught up in the present that they don't realize how much they've learned on that journey to of
Yeah.
course, work towards that goal. So I would love to, of course, like hear your answer in regards to, again, everyone that you've worked with. What's like
Yeah.
maybe one or two lessons that you've learned from other people when it comes to, of course, like their journeys and their process with you?
Yeah. I think like we sort of kind of touched upon it a little bit anyway. I think it's just the mindset that has been the biggest takeaway for me. Like I can teach clients to the cows come home about how to lift a weight, but um seeing their attitudes change towards their own bodies, and also like, and it has taught, and I've obviously learned that from other people along the line. Okay, like I remember when I was maybe about 24, and there's a guy who used to come to the gym, and we were all trying to guess his age, and anyway, one of the girls said, oh, how old are you? And because we thought, oh, he's probably about 40, we reckon. And he said he was 50. And he said, the thing I've learned in life is like, take care of your body and it will take care of you,
Mhm.
like all the normal sort of cliche things I suppose you might hear that nowadays. But, when I was 24 and back then, that wasn't really, anybody really talked about like, as you age, you can improve the way you look and feel and all that sort of thing. So I think there was that element was one driver for me. And then the other element is like the mindset element is just like when I see sometimes you don't know if you're really being, you're doing your job, but you don't know how much of an impact you're having on a person until sort of further down the line, or you ask for a testimonial, or they just say something in the session, and you think, oh, all right,
Yeah.
and they'll say like, I'm so pleased I started seeing you, and like my confidence has grown and I feel stronger, and God, I just wish I'd done this 10 years ago, and that's what a lot of people do say to me. And I get that even in consultations, like, I just wish I started sooner. And I think that's the key thing is for a lot of people, it's making it part of their lifestyle, not thinking it's a bolt on that they should be doing for a temporary measure, like losing weight for the summer,
Yeah.
whatever it is,
100%.
like, which is so annoying. Um, I'm like, there's so much more to life than like trying to have a beach body ready for the summer. Like, this is about like, as you get older and older, you're gonna, and that's the other type of person that really inspires me is like a lot of my older clients, they're like 60s, 70s, and that attitude isn't, oh, I'm in my 60s and my 70s, I can't manage this. Their attitude is, yeah, I'm 60 or I'm 70. Yeah, like that has no bearing on like what I'm capable of doing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, exactly. Like, I just don't believe in the age thing at all. I'm just
Yeah.
like, make the most of your body. Your body is capable of anything. And it really frustrates me when I do meet, I always feel there's a 50-50. You got the 50% who always will go, I believe I can do anything if I put my mind to it, or if I trust in what you're telling me that I can do, then I'm going to do it, kind of thing. And then there's always that 50% who just go, well, I can't do that, my age, or, when you get older, it just gets harder. Yeah, everything gets a bit harder when you get older. Like, but like, if you're willing to learn or open yourself up to possibility, like anything is possible. Like, yeah. So maybe I've gone off with a bit of a tangent there.
No,
Sorry.
honestly, Matt, that's great because it's such a limiting belief that so many people unfortunately kind
Yeah,
of get
I
themselves
have,
stuck in.
I've only got one client that I'm working on at the moment because he's kind of new, but like, but the rest of them are like, really in that frame set of like, no, I can, or like, I will correct them in session if they say, oh, I can't. I said, no, you can't. There's no such thing as you can't. I said, you can have a go and see if you can have a go and do it. Like, if you can't manage it, then you can say you can't. But I
Yeah,
said, like, or if they say sorry to me, I tell them off. I'm like, don't be sorry. I said, what you got to be sorry about? Like,
I love
just
it.
come on, we can do this,
I love
so
it.
so
That's
yeah,
awesome. That's
so yeah.
awesome. Well,
But
Maddie, thank you. This has been
no,
this has
thank
been
you, thank you.
literally incredible, and it's funny because like we didn't even get the chance to talk
No,
about
I
the.
know.
I figured this was gonna happen
Sorry.
because again, I was just no.
Yeah,
Honestly, Maddie, this was great, and like this is really what I wanted to talk about. And I was like, if we ran out of things to talk about, like we 100% could have went off in the bikini prep.
yeah,
But no, seriously, like what you're doing is truly incredible, and it's just been such a blessing. I know I told you this before, but getting to know you and being in your corner, throughout your journey, and just again hearing what you're doing over
yeah.
there is amazing. And again, I just learned so much today about yourself when it comes to, of course, what you're doing with the yoga and, of course, the mindset side of things, which is awesome.
Yeah,
So,
no, and thank you, Matt. And one of the reasons I work with you is just because I just loved your positivity, and it's a different kind of vibe, obviously, to the UK kind of thing.
yep.
And I love it. I love it when I get that voice message going, "Look, you're doing awesome," or like, "Just keep doing what you're doing," or like, "Do you know what? I've been there." And it was nice to have somebody to relate with as well, because I know
Yeah.
there was a couple of times, especially with food, always, that I'd be just like, and you'd be like, it's fine,
Yeah.
what, I've been there, and now this is the mindset I need you to get into if you want to get to X,
Yep.
and I'd be like, yeah, no, you're right, but it was always framed in the most positive of ways for me to move forward, rather than feeling like I was being told off,
Yeah.
like, oh, why have you come off, like, whatever. So yeah, I just wanted to get that back to you, and also like, you and Taylor just like really inspire me on so many different levels. Yeah. So thank you.
That
Thank
means the world.
you.
Thank you so much to hear. And with everything, Maddie, where's the best place for anyone listening to this or watching this on
Yeah.
YouTube, Instagram handle you want to share, just more so places they can
Yeah,
find
so
you?
I'm at Energize Wellbeing.
Awesome.
And so you can find me on Instagram, Facebook. I'm on YouTube as Movement with Maddie. So I do like yoga videos, functional flexibility movement, a couple of like very basic workout stuff, but like most of it's like yoga and functional flexibility. So you should be
Awesome.
trying it.
Yeah, and I'll put all the handles and stuff in the caption below so
Yeah,
people can
that's
check that out.
cool. Yeah,
But again, Maddie,
yeah.
thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. We'll definitely will have to have you back to go over the bikini side of
Yeah,
things the
I was
next
going to
time.
say, yeah, I have to come back.
Yes, that'll be great. But again, thank you so much. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much, Matt. Take care. Thank
Of course.
you.